All right, welcome to another video at Mike's Garage. For those of you that have tuned in before, you know that I'm just a dude in a garage. I am not a videographer. I don't do this for money. I do it to help out other people doing what I love to do, which is work on their own cars. So today's project was a full rebuild minus pulling the block. So I went all the way down to, you could see the pistons, and I cleaned it all up. This is a 2000 Chevy Tracker, similar to the Suzuki sidekicks, etc. I think the Geo Trackers. It's the 2-liter dual overhead cam. And I'm just going to share some tips and tricks along the way. There's a great 7-part video that a guy put out of how to remove the head that included all the timing information, pulling the chains, getting the exhaust and intake manifold off. So I'm not going to go into detail on that. What I am going to do is some gotchas, some ahas, stuff like that. So first of all, one of my favorite things to do is to get these cool egg cartons. I get these from Costco. You can get any size, whatever. But I number them, and then I keep a book of what everything is. I track the number of bolts or nuts, where they went, and then I like to throw down the size because when I grab them, I can just grab the right socket. Super easy, super fast. I do clean everything. You should have seen this guy. This is for the AC compressor, and it was black, greasy, and gross. At the beginning of this project, I started with carbon choke cleaner. Then I moved to some brake cleaner, which is way more toxic. But on that thick, dirty stuff, honestly, what worked best was some simple green. And I just do it in my sink over here. Spray a little on with this, and then I let it sit for a few minutes. I spray it again, and then I hit it with a brass brush. These cloth-like rags are freaking awesome for taking dirt off, layers and layers and layers. I bought a set of these like drill cleaner things. That was kind of handy at times, but it's mostly elbow grease. So that's how I clean everything, and it was dirty because the main seal had gone bad, and so it was just spraying oil everywhere. A couple of tips. If you get the gasket set, like if you're doing a full engine rebuild, you're going to get the valve cover. There is no timing cover gasket. You just use RTV. There is a gasket for the water pump, but it's cloth, and they say to put a thin layer of water-based RTV on both sides, or waterproof. And then there is a O-ring on the back of this that goes up against the house, or against the block, I guess. And it did not come with this kit or the overall gasket kit. I had to order that separately, so watch out for that. There is also, there's a tiny like hose that comes into the back of this. It's metal. You might even be able to see it right. No, you can't see it. I can get my finger right where my finger's at. I'm touching the back of it. There is a screw on the back of that took me forever to figure out. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws to get this off, but you've got to get that screw back there to pull that pipe out, and then this whole assembly comes off. I got a tip from Gearhead Brian on getting these stupid exhaust bolts off. Of course, hit it really hard with PB Blaster. I hit it with like 20 minutes in between each spray, and then tighten it a little bit, then loosen it, and they came right off. That wasn't too hard of a problem. Same for these nuts. Tighten just a little bit and then loosen them. They break free. On this timing chain cover, there are, you won't know it, but there are 2 bolts, like one right here where my finger is, and then one right here where my finger is. You'll obviously have this pulled out of the way first, but you'll pull all these bolts, and then you'll wonder why you can't get that off. It's because there's 2 bolts in the bottom of the oil pan that you get from underneath the car. Then it comes off. I kind of bent those a little bit, hoping I don't have a leak. If I have a leak, I put a new one on, so that'll be great. There are some parts, like this is just a spacer, so you won't get those in a kit. I do want to talk about the gaskets for the fuel injectors. So I pulled this all apart just recently. Good news is I had snapped one of, let's see, I guess I'll set that down. I'd snapped one of these connectors, as you often do, because it's a 25-year-old car, and they sell these for $7 at O'Reilly's. So that was really nice. I just did a crimp underneath here with some sticky shrink tubing afterwards. But for these guys here, you get, in the gasket set, you get the new gasket here that just holds it in safely. And then you pull these guys off. Once you pull this off, this whole thing just kind of slides out. And each one of those has this on the base and this near the top. And in the kit, I got valve stem seals, which my valve head guy already put them on, so I didn't end up using those. But these go on top. Pull one of these off first before you pull the base, or it won't come off. And then you put the new base on, the new O-ring on, and then it just slides back in. I, of course, cleaned everything with brake cleaner. So that's that piece. When you're taking off the intake manifold, this took me forever to figure out how to get off. First of all, this is an EGR pipe here. I thought it was related to fuel. It's not. It does not need to come off. I thought it did, so I tried pulling it out. And there's actually, the pipe goes all the way in here. Super hard to get off when it's on the engine. So just leave it there. Doesn't have to go anywhere. You don't have to worry about labeling your plugs, because the inside of the caps only go per plug. So like, for example, this has this single piece, but this one has, actually I think that one does go there. So this single matches that single there, and then we'll click on. So they all just kind of have different settings on them, and so it's easy to find. Do keep track of these hoses and where they end up going. There are 2 fuel hoses that are on the fuel rail that I just showed you with the injectors. I put caps inside of it because they do leak fluid, or fuel in that case. But to get this guy off, you're gonna pull, there's a little piece here, and I can't remember, honestly, I can't remember what that goes to. I haven't gotten that part out yet. But you'll see this little hose piece right here, and it goes to this guy here. But you'll pull all those off. This will be up underneath the intake manifold. Oh no, it's this guy, sorry. There's 2 10mm bolts. They're at the bottom, kind of like dead center here going across. There's one on this side and one here underneath. Take those out with a 10mm. It's pretty easy, just get in there. By the way, I did take off the alternator, and I pulled off the power steering pump, which is just kind of sitting here, which is fine. And when you pull the AC, don't forget, never take your hoses off or you'll leak all your fluid out. That's a pain, so don't mess with that. My pump wasn't leaking, so I didn't worry about trying to replace it or anything. So having pulled those out of the way, and that was a bare one of these bolts, I just had to get in there with a tiny little wrench, not a ratchet, and just move it like 1/8 of a turn. It was a super pain. But once this is off, you can get your hands back in here. You're gonna wanna pull this bar out and away. This piece here mounts here, and then along the, see the intake goes there and there, that's just a bracket. Move that out of the way, and now the big thing is now I can get to these guys underneath. And they are primarily, you can get to some of them with a ratchet, but mostly they're just gonna be a single, I guess wrench, I don't know. I don't know what to call these. Something like this, right? Spanner is what they call them. So there's one underneath each of these manifold intakes locations. Oh, I just knocked one of my spacers off. I'll get it later. So that's it, really. So put this piece on kind of last, and don't forget this on the outside here goes outside of everything. Otherwise, you'll leave a gap on your intake manifold. And honestly, I think that was it. Oh, one other thing that was a real pain for me. This is your camshaft position sensor. Super easy to put on, but back behind here is the end to this lovely little guy right here, which is the coolant that comes off of the head and then out into the upper part of the radiator. Getting those bolts on with this guy in the way was a nightmare. And even pulling this off was also a nightmare. What I should have done is when the head was off, go ahead and attached this first and then put everything in, including, and then this goes on super easy. You don't have to worry about that later, but get this piece on first. And to get the exhaust manifold off, there is at the base, you probably can't see it from this side, it's underneath the car. Oh, well, maybe you can kind of see it. Let's see if I could zoom in and focus. Yeah, right there. That rubber thing right there, if you'll take that off, the camera keeps focusing on the wrong thing. If you'll take that off, then that lets this upper cap piece flex up and down, and we get those 3 bolts off that you can't really see because they're up underneath here. Once you get those bolts off, sorry, I probably turned it sideways on you, my bad. It gets easy to pull the exhaust manifold because that'll then drop down. You may need to loosen these bolts. This is the engine mount. There's one here and one on the other side. Take some wood, put it on the bottom of your transmission pan, jack the transmission pan, which will pull the whole engine up, and that gave me the space to get this off. So that was about it. Also, if you pull the engine oil pan, which I do suggest doing because they tend to leak, you have to jack the engine up all the way because otherwise you can't get the oil pan off. And there's 3 bolts on the pickup on the inside that you have to take off to get the whole thing down. So I think that's it. It was a fun project. It was a little hard, but I don't care. I like working on cars, so hope that helps anybody. And yeah, good luck with your project.